I love you, my brothers and sisters. This week, our theme is Be Loving. I'm Betsy Linnell.
And I'm Hope Owens. This video will review chapters 10 and 11 of Welch's book, Side by Side.
Last week, I mentioned the therapeutic triad. It's the three aspects that I learned in counseling training: unconditional positive regard, congruence, in other words, being genuine, and empathy. That first one sounds a little more complicated than it is. Unconditional positive regard is simply choosing to focus in on what is good in someone else. It's showing the person before us that even if they've made some mistakes, we value them and we see them as an individual. That's the first step in being loving in our relationships.
So what I hear you saying is that we will not be able to have growing relationships in which we help other people unless we see the good in them. And they know we see the good in them.
Yes. It's really that same aspect that Pastor teaches all the time about speaking life into someone. Naming what we see, naming their potential and encouraging them to be all that God has created them to be. It's kind of like my love for butterflies, that we can see that even though it's no longer the caterpillar, it was always able to become what it has been. It's only when it changes that it can be all it was meant to be.
You know, I often ask myself why a person acts the way they do or thinks the way they do. And then when I hear their story, it explains the reason for their thoughts and their behaviors. Not condoning their thoughts and behaviors, but knowing their story really truly helps me to see them in a different light. It's that non-judgmental perspective. And it helps me to see the good in them.
Yes. It reminds me how we were taught in trauma not to ask what is wrong with that person, but rather to ask what has happened to that person. It allows us to see things that we might otherwise consider as simply sinful in a different light. We recognize that maybe they're doing this action out of what is the best for them. They're trying to figure out what their best is. Not that they can't do better, but in that moment, this is what they know to do.
Yeah. You know, the other thing that helps me is knowing that God has created us all. And we have been created in His image. And thereby being able to reflect some of His specific attributes, you know, like love and mercy and grace. It's having this perspective that can also help us to see and enjoy the good in others.
That's true. I have learned over the years doing trauma counseling that seeing someone's pain really helps me to know them. The more I know them, the more I've come to enjoy and appreciate them. And the more people see that we love them in those moments, the more we'll be invited into their lives during other hardship. And then we'll be able to walk with them.
Side by side.